Okay, we should be ready to start now. It's 5:30. I'm so excited to see you guys here. I know that there is a few seconds of delay with the live stream, so I'm going to wait a second to see if you can hear me and see me. You can let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat where you are tuning in from. I love to find out where all of you guys are. I can't believe that last time I did these live sessions, I had around under 1,000 followers, I think. And now we are almost at 20,000, which is crazy. But I am so grateful to each and every one of you who has been following me. Let me know if you've been following me from the beginning in the chat box. But also, if you're new, that's not a problem. Bem-vindo. Please just give me a sim senhora in the chat if you can hear me and see me, because I want to make sure that I am not talking to myself. Okay, consigo ouvir-te e vejo-te. Ótimo. Okay, fantastic. So I know that I'm not just talking to myself. So we've got people from Munich, Canada, Matosinhos in Portugal, amazing. Mozambique, Madeira, fantastic. All right, Netherlands, amazing. So people from all over the world are here because they are confused about a few verbs in Portuguese that are very difficult to get right. So we are going to fix that today. So yeah, just in case you don't know me, or if this is our first time hanging out, my name is Liz. I am a Portuguese teacher based in Lisbon, Portugal. And my favourite thing in life is teaching Portuguese. So I love helping people out, whether you're relocating here, whether you've got a family connection here, whatever it is, I want to help you feel more at home in Portugal. So building that confidence, building the conversation skills, that's what my channel is all about. So if you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. We've got to get to that 20k mark very soon. And we will get going. Okay, brilliant. I've got lots more people tuning in. Montreal, Malta, Washington, DC. Amazing. Czech Republic. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to close down the chat real quick and we are going to get started. So let's start with my presentation then. So this is working well. You can see my presentation. You can see my face as well, hopefully. So let me just keep an eye on the chat to make sure that everybody's happy. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to dive in to an action-packed lesson all about confusing verbs, okay? Because we know how it is, we know what we want to say, but then there's a couple of verbs that seem to more or less mean the same thing, and you just think, I don't know which to use when, okay? So we are going to be looking at those today, things like poder and conseguir, achar and pensar, deixar and partir. These are the ones that we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to see how we can actually differentiate these, which ones we should be using when, okay? So give the video a like if you're watching live. There may be a replay, so if there's a replay, you can comment replay in the comments as well. Okay, so let's crack on then, let's get started. So before we do start, I just want to let you know that I have made a workbook to go along with this lesson, because we are going to cover a lot, and so if you don't want to be, writing things down, also there are extra quiz questions inside this workbook. So all you have to do is go to talkthestreets.com/verbs, and you'll be able to put in your email to get the workbook sent to your email. So it does take a couple of minutes to arrive, so don't freak out if you don't get it straight away. It takes a minute or two, so I suggest you do that now. Because I'm also going to be revealing the answers to the extra quiz questions on my Instagram a little bit later this week. So that is going to be lots of fun. So if you want to follow along without having to take lots of notes, or if you want us to refer back to, it is also going to be really handy for you to go back to at a later date and revise these things, okay? So talkthestreets.com/verbs, and that website is going to be along the bottom of the screen the whole time. So if you need that, that's where it's going to be. So let's get into it then, and we're going to start with the big ones, okay? Poder and conseguir, I get asked about this so much, so many times. So, what is the difference between these two? Because on the face of it, they both mean to be able to, whether you can or can't do something. So you're probably scratching your head and going, but why do they use conseguir sometimes? Why do they use poder sometimes? Well, think of it this way. With all of these verbs, there's going to be one that's very literal and one that's going to be a bit more nuanced and complicated, okay? So we'll start with conseguir, okay? To be able to, but to be physically capable of doing something or not. So whether you really can see me right now, because if you can't see me, there's no grey area, you can or you can't, okay? Or whether you can hear me, there's no grey area, you can or you can't, okay? So if you're physically able to do something, we're going to use conseguir. We will use poder in slightly different situations. So this is when you have permission to do something, or if you're requesting for somebody else to do something, okay? So how does this look in real life? Let's look at a couple of examples, because obviously when we see examples, that's when things become a lot clearer. So, if I said to you, consegues abrir a janela? Consegues abrir a janela? I'm asking you, are you able to open the window? Okay, so actually what's implied here is that it might not be physically possible for you to open that window. Maybe you can't reach it. Maybe it's very stiff. Maybe I've been having trouble of opening it myself. That's when we would use conseguir to literally mean, is it possible? Is it physically possible one way or the other, okay? If I use poder in the same kind of way, podes abrir a janela, I'm asking somebody else to do it. That's now a request. By swapping the verb from conseguir to poder, we are now making a request. So, podes abrir a janela, por favor? Can you open the window, please? So this is when, in English, people are really annoying and they go, I don't know, can I? They don't mean whether they can or can't do it. That's not what you're asking when you're phrasing it that way. You are politely saying to somebody, can you please do that for me? Okay? So same sentence, different verbs, different meanings. All right? Hopefully that's becoming clear. So if I said, não posso abrir a janela, I can translate that to, I can't open the window, but really, I probably could open the window, but maybe I don't have permission to do it, maybe I shouldn't do it for some reason or another, all right? So you're starting to see, hopefully, the difference between those two verbs. A couple more examples. If I say, posso sentar-me aqui? Posso sentar-me aqui? I'm asking for permission again, right? Remember, poder, permission. Can I sit here? If I say, não consigo sentar-me aí, I can't sit there, I'm actually implying that it's not possible. Maybe it's too uncomfortable, maybe I can't get to that seat. So if I say não consigo, it means I literally can't do it. If I say não posso sentar-me aí, não posso, that will imply that for some reason I shouldn't sit there. I could go and sit my bum down there, but maybe somebody already reserved that seat, or it's something that I shouldn't do. All right? So that's our first explanation of our first verb pair. So now it's time for you guys. I promised it would be interactive, okay? It's time for you guys to give this a go. So we've got two sentences here, and in English, we're going to use can't. So we would think it would be the same verb, but in Portuguese, we would use two different verbs here. So based on that explanation that I gave you then, which do you think would be poder and which do you think would be conseguir? So if you're a total beginner, just tell me which verb you think it would be in the chat. And if you are a bit more advanced, you can actually have a go at translating this. All right, so I am going to give you a couple of seconds to answer this because I know that there's a bit of a delay. I'm going to say hello to Keenan, hello to Charlotte. Yes, I am going to explain the difference between trazer and levar, so make sure that you stay tuned. That one is definitely going to be covered. All right, so we have our first answer in here from Stephen. Não podes fumar aqui. Exactly. So for the one about smoking, it should be the verb poder, and the second one is conseguir. Yes, okay, good. So the first one, you can't smoke here, should be poder, because if you wanted to, you physically could do it, but you shouldn't. Okay, you've been told that you can't. And the second one, I can't hear you, would be, as I said before, there's no grey area as to whether you can or can't hear somebody. So it should be conseguir. Não consigo ouvir-te. So there are the two answers for you there. Não podes fumar aqui and não consigo ouvir-te. All right? Perfect. So as I mentioned, there are extra quiz questions of these. If you do go to talkthestreets.com/verbs, where this website is down here, that will give you access to the workbook that I put together to go together with this live session, and there will be extra ones in there to test yourself, okay? Perfect. All right, so that's the first one covered. Brilliant. Let's see what we've got next. Okay, so on the same topic of whether you can and can't do things, all right, we need to be wary of another verb that is going to crop up, okay? So sometimes we need to use the verb saber instead for specific skills that you know how to do. So for example, in English, we will use can and can't for certain skills. So for example, I can drive, I can swim, I can speak English. So a lot of the time I hear students using poder here. Posso conduzir, posso nadar, posso falar inglês. But that's not the verb that we want in this situation. Instead, we want to use saber because that one relates to things that we know how to do, all right? If I said posso falar inglês, I'm asking for your permission to speak English in this situation, okay? When really I want to say, okay? S-E-I is the first person conjugation of the verb saber. Sei conduzir. I can drive. It literally means I know how to drive. And that's where the confusion arises. The confusion arises because in English we would say I can or I can't, okay? But you need to be aware that we would use saber here, okay? So sei conduzir, sei nadar, or sei falar inglês. There's a little accent there missing, sorry. So in my case, actually, I would say não sei conduzir e não sei nadar because I can't do either of those things, unfortunately. But I do know how to speak English. Sei falar inglês, all right? So let's move on then to saber and conhecer. So again, we might translate both of these to mean to know. All right, and that's where we get confused. How do I know which one to use? So, as we just talked about with the phrases sei falar inglês, sei falar português, for example, we use saber when we have specific knowledge of things. When do we use conhecer then? We use conhecer, I like to think of a better translation of conhecer as to be familiar with, or to have met people, or to have visited places, all right? So if it's a thing that you know, it's going to be saber. If it's a person or a place that you're familiar with, you've met that person, you've been to that place, you're going to use conhecer, okay? So let's look at a couple of examples. So, sabes a que horas vamos jantar? Sabes a que horas vamos jantar? Do you know what time we're eating dinner? So that's a thing that you're going to know. That's a thing that you have knowledge of. So that's going to be saber. However, in the next one, conheces a Jéssica? Conheces a Jéssica? Do you know Jessica? So in English, again, this is why we get confused, because in English we would translate that as, do you know Jessica? But we could also translate it as, have you met Jessica? Okay, because we're talking about a person, we're going to use conhecer. Same goes for conheces Lisboa? Are you familiar with Lisbon? Have you been to Lisbon? In this circumstance, we wouldn't really translate that in English as to do you know Lisbon? You might. You'd be like, do you know Lisbon very well? For example, you might do that. But this one's a bit more obvious. Are you familiar with? Have you been to Lisbon? All right. So those are some examples of how they would be different. So time to test yourself. You can tell me in the chat which one would be saber and which one would be conhecer. I don't know him. I don't know how to do it. Which one would you use saber for and which one would you use conhecer for? And if you're a little bit more advanced, you can have a go at translating the sentence for me as well. Perfect. All right. Let's wait a moment for you to have a go. You're welcome, Peter Cosgrave. Okay. Let's see what your answers are for this one. Conheces o Ted? Do you know Ted? Nice one. Yes. Very, very good. That's when you would use conhecer if you're talking about a person. So yeah, first answer's in already. Number 1 is conhecer and number 2 is saber. Exactly. So great work from everybody. Cindy, Jasmine, I see you there, Jasmine. Good to see you. So this would be the translation then. Não o conheço. I don't know him. Não o conheço. I'm using conhecer because I'm talking about a person. I don't know how to do it. Não sei fazê-lo. I don't know how to do it because I'm talking about a thing, whether I know it or not. Okay? Fabulous. You guys are doing really, really well. All right. So the reason why, just side note, why we put the O here and not at the end, if you've seen some of my previous lives, you know that the word now is a magnet word. And if there's any pronoun in the sentence, it's going to suck. It's going to attract the pronoun to be before the verb. Okay, that's another lesson. All right. So what have we got next? Next we have achar and pensar. Again, very, very, very similar verbs, but used in different contexts. And this is one that I get asked about all the time. So what really is the difference between achar and pensar? Let's translate them in a slightly different way. Okay, so achar is to feel or to believe something. Okay, so that's why when you're saying to somebody, I think so, we would say acho que sim, because that's something I believe, right? I believe it to be true. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Okay. But pensar is slightly different. Pensar is when we're reflecting on something, when we're considering something, when we're thinking about something or someone. So can you see the really subtle difference there? Pensar is more when you're thinking about, all right? And achar is something that you think yourself, that you believe to be true. All right, so let's look at a couple of examples. Acho que preciso de corte de cabelo, which is absolutely true after 4 months of lockdown. I think I need a haircut. Acho que preciso de corte de cabelo. So the reason I'm using achar here is because that's something that I believe to be true, right? I need a haircut. However, if I want to say, I'm thinking about going to Sintra this weekend, estou a pensar em ir a Sintra este fim de semana. Okay? I'm thinking about it, I'm considering it, I'm reflecting on it, so I'm going to use pensar. Okay? So very subtle difference, but that is how you're going to tell those two verbs apart. Okay? So, time to test yourself. And remember, there are extra quiz questions in the workbook if you want to download that, talkthestreets.com/verbs. So the first one is, I'm thinking about you, or I thought the concert was great. One of these I'm going to use pensar, and one of these I'm going to use achar. So you can let me know in the chat. If you're a beginner, just tell me which verb to use. If you are more advanced, you can have a go at translating it for me, okay? So, just to answer a couple of questions that are coming in the chat while I wait for your answers. Would it be conheço in the affirmative or conheço-lo? So it would just be the O. We only need to add an L if there's an R, S or Z at the end of the verb, okay? So that's called the RSZ rule. That's when we need to add an L. So if it's not there, we don't need it. If it was her, would it be a instead of o? Absolutely. So because I was saying I don't know him, the pronoun I used was O, but if it was a woman, it would be a, okay? So let's have a look at some of the answers. So number 1 should be pensar, and number 2 should be achar. Yes, I think most of you got this right. Perfect. So let's see what the translations are then. Estou a pensar em ti. That's a lovely one to learn and tell people. I'm thinking about you. Estou a pensar em ti. Or, I thought the concert was great. Achei o concerto fantástico. Of course, you can add your own adjective there for great. I just went for fantástico, but it can be whichever you want. So this is great. You guys are definitely getting the hang of this. Okay, so we're cracking on. We're ready for the next one. You guys are learning super quick. So, entender versus perceber versus compreender. Okay, 3 verbs that all mean to understand. Every single one of them means to understand. So what is the subtle difference then between these 3 verbs? All right, the good news is that entender and perceber mean the same and can be used interchangeably. Okay, so you don't need to stress out too much. Perceber has an added definition that's very common, which is to realize, like, oh, I didn't even realize, or later I realized that. Okay, we can use perceber in that context. The one that's quite different is compreender. Okay, compreender is quite different because this is in the context of being able to relate to somebody, to identify with them, to empathize with them. So for example, you would say, listen, I don't want to come to the party because I'm feeling really ill. You might say to somebody, okay, I understand. Okay, you're not literally saying I understand the words you're saying. You're saying I understand the feelings that you're going through and it's okay with me, right? So that one is slightly different. So why do we hear perceber much more in Portugal? Well, oh hello, there we go. As I said before, perceber and entender mean the same thing. So if you want to say I didn't understand, you can say não percebo or não percebi. Or you can say não entendo or não entendi. Those do mean the same thing. The difference is that really in Portugal you will hear perceber much more often, okay? And as a kind of filler word, I'm always talking about filler words and the kind of slang and things that you hear in the street. So you know how you're often saying to people, do you know what I mean? Like in English, that's probably what we would say at the end of a sentence. Do you know what I mean? In Portugal, we would say percebes, percebes. And now that literally translates to do you understand? But it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? Do you get it? And you might respond, já percebi, yeah, I get it. Whereas in Brazil, they use entender a lot more, okay? So in that same context of saying to someone, do you get it? I might say entendeu, or I might even shorten it to just entendeu. And the response would be entendi, or entendi, or entendi, okay? So that's why you might see these verbs used in slightly different contexts. And then the last one there was an example for using compreender, because I do see lots of people saying, When they want to say they didn't understand something, like they didn't understand the way something was said in Portuguese, for example, they might say não compreendo. But really, this is the better use of the verb compreender. Remember, when you're empathizing with somebody, when you're telling them that you understand how they feel, compreendo, okay? So here's an example sentence. Não te preocupes, compreendo. Don't worry, I understand. I understand how you feel, really, would be the rest of that sentence. All right, so is that clear? I think so. I think, yeah, these ones always trip me up. Yes, exactly. Yeah, so another question that we just had there is why isn't it sobre ti? It's em ti. Estou a pensar em ti. Basically, prepositions are super difficult to get right, so don't worry about that. But basically, they don't really translate directly. So even though if I were to say the word about in English and I looked it up in the dictionary, it might give me the word sobre. But because prepositions don't really translate directly between languages, some verbs will always require a certain preposition. So when I'm using pensar and I'm using it in the context of thinking about someone or something, it will always be with em, okay? So that's just a little side note there. So how are you getting on? Is this useful? Give me a sí señora in the chat if it is. If you have the workbook, I will be giving the answers away on my Instagram page. So that is just at Talk the Street. So over the next couple of days, we'll be uploading the answers to the extra questions, yeah? And actually, I'm going to take a little photo of us now to post on my stories for everybody who was here. And if you post, cheese! And if you post anything on Instagram about the session, make sure that you tag me in it so that I can reshare it. Okay, so that will be fun. So I know I haven't been very active on Instagram for a while, but it's coming. More content is coming soon. All right. So I actually do live Q&As like this with my students every week. We do it every Wednesday, and I can see some of them here, which is amazing because they must like hanging out with me. We hung out yesterday, and they're here again today. So lots of people ask more about my course, and I am accepting new students at the moment. So I just want to give you a quick, I'm going to get rid of my face there so that you can see the link. Portuguese Pro is my signature course. It is the only course that I have available right now. So we do cater to some very specific people. So I'm going to give you a quick run through. If you think this sounds like you are very, very welcome to apply. We've got another half of the lesson to go, so don't go anywhere. If you are relocating or retiring to Portugal, this is definitely the course for you. If you are already here, but you're just fed up of struggling with speaking Portuguese, this course is for you. If you want to master European Portuguese, but just need some direction, need some structure, don't actually know how to get there, this is for you. If you're fed up of paying the tourist tax on everything you buy, if you hate sounding like a tourist when you speak, if you want to actually understand what's being said to you and not have to ask people to speak English all the time. I know that lots of people struggle with that. Don't worry, the struggle is real. And so is the struggle of actually learning grammar in a non-boring way, right? I promise you, it doesn't have to be boring. You don't have to get overwhelmed with how complex it is. If you don't want to look through textbooks, that's absolutely fine. That's what this course was designed to help you with. So there is an application form on my website if you want to go through and apply for that now. I would love to see more of you there. However, if you have already reached an A2 level of proficiency, this won't be the best course for you. It is a beginner's course. We do start from scratch. We do start from the beginning with a refresher of all the basics. So if you're already there, then hopefully in the future, it will be something that I will be able to help you with in the future. But right now, this is the only course I have. So you don't want to be joining this course if you don't think that Portuguese is an essential skill for life in Portugal. You don't want to join this course if you want to stay in your expat bubble, because that's really not what this course is about. You don't want to join the course if you don't have the time or motivation to learn a language, because unfortunately my students need to have that motivation in spades. If you don't want to practice with real people, you'd be surprised at how many people don't want to actually practice with real people. If you think you can only make progress with a one-on-one tutor, obviously that's not the case. My students will tell you that that's not the case who are in my group program. And if you think you can learn all you need to know from free apps and YouTubes, then you can learn a lot, but imagine, you know, what you could actually learn if you really, really put your mind to it, and if you came on board with my course. I really think that I could help a lot of you. So it's talkthestreets.com/apply if you want to apply to the course. I hope to see lots of you there. So without further ado, it's time to get on to one of the most requested verb pairs of all. What is the difference between levar and trazer? So, right, levar. This is where we take something to where we are going. So you need to think of it, the action as going away, there, all right? But if you're bringing something to where you are, to here, that is trazer, okay? So levar, take something there. Trazer, bring something to where we are. So the question is, why do people get so confused between those two? Well, confusion arises because in English, we can use to bring and to take interchangeably. So that's why sometimes we can translate levar as to bring or to take when we're speaking in English, okay? I might say, I'm going to Scotland and I'm going to bring my wellies, for example. But when we're speaking Portuguese, we do want to use levar to mean to take. So you've got to think about whether you're taking something away from somewhere or bringing something closer to you, to where you are, okay? So think about the positions of the two. So let's look at those two in action. So, vou levar uma garrafa de vinho tinto à festa. I'm going to take a bottle of wine to the party. So I'm at home right now. I'm going to the party, which is over there. I'm going to take a bottle of wine, so it's levar, okay? Then, vens à minha festa? Podes trazer uma garrafa de vinho tinto? So, here, I'm the person speaking. I'm the person who's throwing the party. It's at my house. And I'm saying to somebody, are you coming to my party? Could you bring a bottle of red wine? Okay, could you bring it to me? Because I'm already in the spot where it's going to be. So it would be bringing. So that would be trazer. Okay, so now it's time to test you. I want to know what you think. One coffee to take away, please. And I didn't give it away, you see, in the question here. I will bring/take my coat to the concert. All right? Which one do you think is which? So remember, you've got to think about where you're going. Are you going there? You're coming here? And you can tell me. Which one? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. I'm waiting for you. Xander is impressed that this is actually such a easy explanation, yeah. But really the confusion arises is because in English we kind of use bring and take interchangeably. All right, so here come the first answers. Café para levar, por favor. Exactly. So when we say para levar, it means to take away. So this really, really helps. Because that's exactly when we use levar, to take something, okay? So, what are the answers then? So they were actually both levar. I gave you a bit of a trick question there. So, vou levar o meu casaco para o concerto. So, I'm using levar here because I'm not at the concert right now. But later on, I'm going to be going to the concert. The concert's there. I'm here, and I've decided that I'm going to take my coat. So this is where the problem arises in English, because I might say, I'm going to bring my coat. It should be, I'm going to take my coat. Okay? So that's why in Portuguese it would be vou levar o meu casaco para o concerto. So hopefully that explains why these are confusing. Bum 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 bum. All right, just checking the chat to see how you guys are getting on. Amazing. Okay, perfect. Right. Next up. Whew, I'm going to take a sip of water because this is hard work. All right. Next up we have Here we go. Buscar, apanhar, and pegar. Another three that I'm always asked about. What is the difference? Okay, so buscar is when you pick someone or something up. Okay? So, a couple of examples. Vim buscar as minhas chaves. I came to pick up my keys. Tenho que ir buscar o meu filho às 11. I have to pick my son up at 11. Alright, so both of these cases in English we're saying pick up, pick up. So the reason why these get confusing is because apanhar can also be used in this context of picking somebody up. So I think I put that on the slide, didn't I? Yeah, I just need to move my face. So, apanhar can sometimes be used. I might say, tenho que apanhar o meu filho às 11. Okay? That might be used there as well. So that's why buscar sometimes gets confused with apanhar. And buscar gets confused as well because in Spanish, it means the more common definition, that's the word, is to look for. But in Portuguese, we'll say procurar, for looking for, instead of buscar. Buscar is more commonly picking something or someone up. So, why do we get so confused then between pegar and apanhar? Well, pegar and apanhar basically mean the same thing. First of all, so breathe that sigh of relief. Okay, first of all. The difference is that in Portugal, we use apanhar more often. Okay, there are many contexts where we prefer to use apanhar. Okay, in Brazil, they use it all over the place. In Brazil, pegar can be used, whereas in Portugal, we might choose other verbs. So I actually took this from a really good website. If you guys are a bit more advanced and you have nitty-gritty answers that you want to get to, it's called Saber da língua portuguesa. So this is the link. And these were some of the examples of verbs that they gave. Not all of them make sense to me, actually, but in Portugal, for example, we would choose other verbs instead of pegar, whereas in Brazil, you could use pegar for kind of all of those things. So, let's see what that looks like then. I've got 3 sentences here using catch. Okay, this is one of the most common translations of pegar and apanhar. We have what we're likely to say in Portugal and what we're likely to say in Brazil. So for those of you who don't know, I did live in Brazil. I still revert to my Brazilian Portuguese when I'm with my Brazilian friends. And I think both are important, love both variants of the language, but I do live in Portugal, I do teach European Portuguese because that's where I am. And there's lots of fantastic teachers teaching Brazilian Portuguese, so you don't need me to do that as well. But here are kind of the differences. So did the police catch the thief? A polícia apanhou o ladrão. That's what we would say in Portugal. In Brazil, they might say, a polícia pegou o ladrão. You will catch a cold without a jacket. In Portugal, we would say, vais apanhar uma gripe sem casaco. You're going to catch a cold. But in Brazil, você vai pegar gripe sem casaco. Okay, so apanhar here, pegar there. Catching the bus. I caught the bus. Apanhei o autocarro. But in Brazil, peguei o ônibus. Okay, so you can see some of the slight changes that we have there, but this is why we get confused between these two verbs. So when would you actually use pegar in Portugal? We do still use pegar in Portugal for specific contexts. So here are a couple of them. To grip or to hold on to something, or to stick to. Okay, So, for example, let's move my face again up there. Pega bem no puxador. Pega bem no puxador. Hold on tight to the handle. Or, a tinta não pegou bem à parede. The paint didn't stick to the wall. Okay, so that idea of holding onto something, sticking to something, this is when we would use the verb pegar in Portugal. Okay, so time to test yourself. Tell me which verbs you would use for these 3 sentences. So number 1, I need to pick my mum up at 4. Number 2, I don't want to catch the train. And number 3, don't hold the pot, it's hot. Okay, so I know that was a difficult one, so let's see how you got on with it. Let's see, gripe is cold, yes. Lots of you are still talking about entender. Waiting for your first. Isn't it constipação? Yeah, constipação is more like the snuffles. So you know they can both be the same thing. So waiting to see what your answers are. Do the Portuguese accept or understand pegar, or is it utterly wrong? This is the kind of thing that if you do use it, you will be understood. It's just a case of that it's more common to use the other verb, I believe. I don't think anybody who says that wouldn't understand you. So, preciso de apanhar a minha mãe às 4. Yes, we can use the first one. We can actually use apanhar or ir buscar, either of those. The second one is apanhar, absolutely. And the third one is pegar. Amazing, love to see this. You guys are doing so well. So, preciso de apanhar ou ir buscar a minha mãe às 4. Não quero apanhar o comboio. Não pegues na panela. Está quente. Okay? Those were tricky, but it sounds like you guys are getting the hang of it, so I love to see it. Great work. Okay, so this is the last one. Partir versus deixar. How do we know the difference between these ones? Okay, partir, we're going to think of this as departing, okay, to depart from. Whereas deixar has a lot of other meanings. Deixar can mean to stop doing something. It can mean to leave as well, because basically both of these are translated as to leave, which is why we get confused, because we're like, well, how do I know which one it is? Deixar can mean to leave, but more in the case of leaving something behind, okay? Not leaving like a train leaving, okay? To allow is another definition of deixar, okay? So let's look at some examples. O comboio para Coimbra já partiu. Important to note, of course, that lots of these verbs, some of them have even more meanings, but we're just looking at the ones that get confusing, okay? So partir, for example, can also mean to break, but in this context, we're talking about leaving. So the train to Coimbra has already left. So that's a really perfect example of where we would use partir. Sometimes in these situations, what I will do is I will replace that verb with what it should mean if I'm using the right verb. So remember, I could say, the train to Coimbra has already departed. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. So I can use partir, okay? Vou deixar de fumar. I'm going to stop smoking. If I said, I'm going to depart from smoking, nah, that doesn't really make sense, does it? So I want deixar here. Deixe-me em paz. Leave me alone. That's a good one to learn, especially if you have small kids. Maybe you want some time to yourself. Deixe-me em paz. Leave me alone. So again, this is leave, but if I replaced in that sentence, if I said depart me alone, wouldn't make any sense, would it? So I'm going to want deixar there because it can mean leave in this kind of context. And finally, a minha mãe não me deixa. My mum doesn't let me. I want to go to the party, but my mum doesn't let me. Yeah, for example. So, it's time for the last test. She left the bags by the door. Or, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Which one do you think is which? Somebody also asked me about the verb sair and how that fits in here. Sair I would translate to going out. So, hoje à noite vou sair com a minha amiga Luciana. Today I'm going to go out with my friend Luciana. If I said I'm going to depart with my friend Luciana, that sounds weird. That would mean that we were physically leaving the same space at the same time, but that's not what I mean in that context, is it? Okay? So that's where sair fits in. So, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Liz is the best teacher. Oh, thanks. Brilliant. So somebody has asked, can you say chegar instead of deixar? Chega de fumar, John. So we use chega to mean that's enough, okay? So if you said, oh, já chega, that's enough. So you can kind of use it in this context of stop doing that, please. But really what you're saying there is that's enough, okay? So let's see what we have. Are these some of the examples of the words which can be learned on your course? So my course is more of a one-stop shop to go from not knowing anything to being conversational. So this is the kind of thing that we do cover on the inside, but it's structured differently and has tons and tons of different lessons. It's got over 50 lessons in there that will build you up from nothing. So I'm getting some answers in here now. So number 1, deixar, and number 2, partir. Love it. Correct. Ela deixou os sacos do supermercado na porta. She left the supermarket bags by the door. So if I said she departed the bags, no, that wouldn't make any sense. So I don't want to use partir. I want to use deixar. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'm departing tomorrow morning. Yeah, that one makes sense. So I'm going to use partir. Excellent. Okay, how did you guys get on? Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, well you guys, listen, that was 45 minutes of hardcore learning and you all did so well. So we're going to wrap up now. It was so good to see so many of you. I think we've had like nearly 170 of you online and hopefully lots more will watch when this is also published, but it was so fun to interact with so many of you in the comments. If you did enjoy the session, don't forget that you can apply to the course. This is the kind of thing that we cover all of the time inside Portuguese Pro. We have weekly live sessions with me where I can take you from the beginning all the way to being conversational in Portuguese. So hopefully lots of you will be in my inbox tomorrow applying to work with me. That would be so much fun. I would love to help you. So with that said, I am gonna close down the live now. But yeah, it was so good to do this again. I haven't done this for, well, I did one at Christmas, didn't I? But before that, I haven't really done this for about a year. So it's always fun to jump on. I'm coming back to YouTube. Lots of you have been asking me when my weekly videos are gonna start again. So first week of May is when I'm planning coming back, and honestly the content I have planned is so much fun. I had so much fun filming it last week. We went out and did 3 whole days filming all around Lisbon, and we're going to be bringing you lots of exciting and different stuff. So I hope that you're all subscribed to the channel so that you will know when I'm back. And if you found this helpful, send the channel to a friend, send the videos to other friends who are trying to learn Portuguese. I want to make sure that we spread the love and that more people find the channel and that more people will subscribe because we want to get to that 20k. Come on, you guys, you can help me do this. All right, so with that said, I will say beijinhos, boa noite, muito obrigado por assistirem. Any questions, you can come and find me on Instagram. You can leave your comments in YouTube. Hopefully that you will enjoy looking out for the answers to the extra questions that I put into the workbook. All right. So all that's left is to say obrigada and ciao for now. Obrigada, pessoal.